My name is Brooke Hemenway, and today I'm going to be talking about the disadvantages of animal testing. Every year in the United States, more than 110 million animals die due to animal testing in laboratories. Animal testing has been used as a method to advance medicine, cosmetics, and other products for over 60 years. United States laws allowing animals to be sentenced to a life of pain, including being burned, isolation, starving, and much more. The main points against animal testing that I will be covering include 1. Animal testing is unethical. 2. Any benefits that could be or have been discovered are not worth the suffering. 3. Animal testing is often ineffective and bad science. And 4. There are other viable alternatives to animal testing, therefore making it unnecessary. Animal testing is unethical because animals are thinking and feeling creatures that are sentenced to a life of pain and suffering. Animals are treated as objects and they're not given the choice to participate. Further down the slides, I talk about how there are other viable alternatives, which includes human clinical trials, and human clinical trials has the ability to obtain volunteers, which you are not able to with animals because they cannot actually accept. Other than the physical pain of the experiments, which includes being immobilized in restraint devices for long periods of time, inhaling toxic fumes, and even having holes drilled into their skulls, they are socially isolated and psychologically traumatized. All animals have the basic instinct of wanting to run free, and that's taken from them when they're put in a sterile laboratory. Even if researchers attempt to minimize the pain and distress experienced by the animals being tested on, suffering is still inevitable as they're forced to live through disease and injuries and are many times euthanized at the end of the study. The species most used for animal testing in the U.S. are mice, rats, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians, and those species comprise 99% of all animals in laboratories, but those same species are most of the time exempt from the protections of the Federal Animal Welfare Act. Many labs that use only these species are not required to provide them with pain relief, veterinary care, to consider alternatives to animal testing, or to be inspected by the Department of Agriculture. This only furthers the idea that these animals are objects that exist to benefit humans. Animal testing being seen as a necessary evil only furthers the insensitivity to the animal's pain, suffering, and basic needs. We would never allow our pets to go through animal testing, and that's why we should not let any animals go through this testing. My second point is that any benefits that could be or have been discovered are not worth the suffering. Every year, more than 110 million animals, including mice, fish, monkeys, dogs, rabbits, and even more, are killed in labs for animal testing. By using animal testing, effective treatments are being discarded by mistake, and many harmful treatments are often being pushed forward. There have been many reports of approved drugs causing serious health problems that were not foreseen, causing the Food and Drug Administration to require black box warnings on the product or to remove the product from the market completely. Other than the pain and suffering of animals, many of the items or products that are tested are never even used, making their pain and suffering completely unnecessary. Trillions of dollars have been wasted over the years on testing that is not even effective most of the time. According to Pet Finder, the cost of caring for a single dog for 1 year is $9,000, and there are millions of animals that are tested on each year. My third point against animal testing is that it's often ineffective and bad science. It's impossible to use animal outcomes to predict results in humans. Animals and humans have obvious differences in terms of anatomy, metabolism, and more. For example, morphine causes hyperexcitement in cats, but a calming feeling in humans. Another example is that penicillin is toxic to guinea pigs, but has successfully treated infections for humans. Animals also do not get many of the diseases that humans do, such as HIV or Parkinson's disease. Instead, these diseases are artificially induced in animals in labs. This causes pain and suffering, but this is also impossible to do as human conditions are affected by many different variables, such as genetics, personal experiences, psychological issues, and more. 9 out of the 10 drugs that are believed to have passed in the lab through animal testing then go on to fail in human clinical trials. This is backed by recent data from NIH, who state that failure rates from animal to human research are at about 96%. Many treatments that fail on animals never go on to be tested on humans. For example, Pfizer's drug Lipitor did not seem promising in animal testing until a scientist pushed for it to be tested on human volunteers, and it was only then found to be very effective. If it was tested on humans in the very first place, we could have had Lipitor long before. Cruelty Free International reported that a recent study found out that out of 93 dangerous side effects, only 19% could have been predicted with animal testing. My fourth and final point against animal testing is that there are many other viable alternatives now, therefore making it unnecessary. These alternatives most of the time are cheaper, faster, and more effective. One of these alternatives are in vitro methods. These are tests using human cells and tissues. An example is an organ on a chip. This is a multi-channel 3D cell culture, an integrated chip that stimulates the activities, mechanics, and physiological response of an entire organ or organ system. Another example are organoids. These are 3D tissue cultures derived from stem cells. These are much like organ on a chip in that they replicate the complexity of an organ. In silico models are another option or alternative. These are computer modeling techniques that simulates human biology and the progression of developing diseases. Another alternative are human volunteers or human patient simulators. Human patient simulators are life-size adult and infant simulators that replicate human physiological. They are mechanical and computer-controlled simulators that mimic human appearance and display symptoms and disease processes as they are in real humans. There are many other viable options as well, and not to mention, none of these options result in animals getting euthanized at the end of the testing. Altogether, animal testing is not necessary and unethical, and I hope that you all stand against animal testing after this PowerPoint.